أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. In the name of Allah, the Compassionate, the Most Merciful, all praise is due to Allah, and may His peace and blessings be upon our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. I begin by greeting you all. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhum. So it's me again, talking about that topic again. Somebody said, is this all you talk about now? Do you talk about sex all the time now? I said, no, I don't just talk about sex, I talk about sex and sexuality. Last time I was here, I was hoping to argue that in the Quran, there are over 80 references to this topic. Some are explicit and some are implicit. And we said that the Quran speaks about this topic honestly, openly, accurately, and most important, decently. The same approach that the Prophet ﷺ had when talking about sex and sexuality to the community. And we also said that within our community and other religious communities, talking about sex is difficult. Not because the religion mandates the difficulty, but because our own cultural and different assumptions that we have made, we've assumed that good Muslims don't necessarily talk about these things. We also said that in the past, people would say, I don't want to talk to my kids about sex and sexuality because I don't want my kids to lose their innocence. We argue that there is a difference between innocence and ignorance. We want our kids to be innocent, we just don't want our kids to be stupid. There is a difference between chastity and gullibility. It is beautiful to be chaste, but gullibility should not really be mixed with chastity. And we said that the Prophet ﷺ was also a person that spoke very openly and very accurately and very honestly about this topic. And inshallah, what we're going to do is, there are two issues that are related to sex and sexuality that I believe are very, very vital that we address today. And let me just paint a picture for you, just to give you an idea of what is going on. And as I said last time, I take full responsibility for this lecture, so please, if you have anybody that you are upset with, please come and talk to me. So check this out. The average person is ready to be sexually active, physically, that is at what age? Around what age would you say? Average person nowadays. Somebody yell out a number. What do you say? Around 15, people are physically ready to be sexually active. And let's just say that they may be physically ready, but not necessarily emotionally, psychologically, and sociologically. So we will just push them and say that, you know what? They are actually ready at the age of 18. So we've got two people. We've got your average, good, practicing Muslim boy or girl. Around the age of 15, they are ready to be sexually active, but they chose not to. And then you have your non-practicing or non-Muslim boy or girl who were ready to be sexually active at the age of 15, and they chose to be sexually active at the age of 15. What is the average age that this boy or girl, Muslim practicing boy or girl, what is the average age of them possibly getting married? Average Muslim boy gets married around the age of 35? Astaghfirullah al-azim. Okay? So about 28? 28. And this person is already active at the age of 15. So this person, even though ready to be sexually active at the age of 15, they really did not become sexually active until the age of 28. We have got 13 years between the person being ready to be sexually active and sexually being active. And we have this person. They were active since they were 15. And please hear me out well. These people are more in tuned to nature than these people. These people right here are closer to their sense of fitrah, natural inclination, than these people. Don't get me wrong. We do not agree with the way that these people have carried out their sexual energy, but definitely this is more natural than this. Are you following? Am I losing anybody? So remember, if I lost you, I really don't care, but I'm just asking if I lost anybody, okay? So, this is admirable, but it's not natural. So this person has got 13 years of what I refer to as 13 years of hell. That person would be going through what we call sexual frustration. And that is a lot of sexual energy with absolutely nowhere to go with it. And unfortunately, because we have been taught to suppress these types of feelings, we forget that suppression ultimately leads to anger, and anger leads into resentment. And that's not it. But that person then, because they're just so unbelievably frustrated, sexually that is, and they have all this energy, and they really don't know what to do with this energy, we tend to become a little bit minimalists. And that is, what can I do that is not the big haram, but it is there, but I'm not really doing the big haram, but I'm doing at least something. And this is almost asking the question of, how high can I jump before I hit the ceiling? How far can I go before I cross the line? And unfortunately, it does not end there. We develop what we call social schizophrenia. And that is, here I am really trying to be doing my best to be a good practicing Muslim boy or girl, but that frustration is just eating up at me. So what I end up doing is that I end up picking some other habit, be it in the form of pornography, be it an addiction to masturbation, or whatever the case is. But then what happens is, see, I really did not live the life of a very good Muslim where I enjoyed my religiosity, nor did I really enjoy the haram that I was involved in, because every time I did it, I felt very guilty. So I have neither been able to achieve being a good practicing Muslim, nor have I really achieved enjoying what it is that I was doing. And at that point, religion does not really become a source of joy. It can potentially become a source of misery. And these young boys and girls, they really are trying to do their absolute best, but it is just too much. Especially seeing that we live in a culture where everything is sexualized. The average person, they say, if you watch TV every day, you are potentially exposed to about 9,000 sexual scenes every single year. That is crazy, man. That is a lot. But then somehow we expect our kids, boys and girls, that is, to remain chaste. It is beautiful expectations, but it is a lot of pressure that is leading into this kind of frustration, and eventually that person actually becomes very, very depressed. I see these young boys and girls who come to our practice and they say, you know, I do what I do at night or early in the morning, and I end up missing my morning prayers. And when it's time to do the second Dhuhr prayer, I don't do it because I tell myself, what good is it that I am doing this prayer even though I missed the prayer in the morning? And then by the end of the day, I say, what am I even praying for? I haven't done my prayers for the beginning of the day. And then they give up Friday prayers because they say, now I just feel like a hypocrite, because what good is my Friday prayers if I'm not doing my regular prayers? And then what good is Ramadan if I am not? And unfortunately, from there on, it literally snowballs. And for these people, wallahi, I pity them, because there is just this frustration, and people have absolutely no idea what to do with it. And it is too much to be asking of this. And that's not bad enough, because usually people who are living this lifestyle, then what ends up happening is, because of this sexual frustration and having to find a way out of it and then feeling guilty about it, and that is also when we see depression setting in. I have young men calling me, and please talk to my son, please talk to my daughter. You know, I'm talking about my son is very depressed, and I'm sorry I used son because supposedly the consumers of porn are mostly men, even though women do consume porn as well. And I would be talking to them about depression, and then I ask and I say, do me a favor. How often do you consume porn? I don't ask if you watch or consume. I just say, how often do you do it? And then I say, and by the way, the average is once or twice a day. And what I hear is, Sheikh, I am within that average. I do consume it once or twice a day. And what we're seeing is that there is a lot of that type of what we call porn-induced depression that is taking place amongst these young people. Actually, it gets a little bit worse than this. And the bad news here is, I honestly do not have an answer for that. This is really, really bad. But my hope is that we understand where these young people are coming from. The other thing that we are seeing also is there is an agenda that is being pushed lately. There was an article on the Huffington Post that came out on 2015, I believe it was in March of 2015. And it was written by an LGBT activist. And the title of the article was, I am here to indoctrinate your children, and I am not sorry a bit for it. I am here to indoctrinate your children, and I am not sorry for it. And what you see is there is this push about not only tolerance, but acceptance. I was looking into some of the sex ed curriculums about what is being taught in these schools. And as you know, since the Obama administration came in, sex ed in many states was and is mandatory. I believe it's mandatory in about 25 different states. And then you look into what is being taught. And what is being taught is just unbelievable. I'm just going to give you two examples of books as an example that are being pushed on these young kids. One book is by the title of The Story of the Color Red, or a crayon, the red crayon. And basically what the red crayon is, it was a blue crayon, but they put the wrong label on it. So they put red, but it was really blue. So the red crayon wanted to make a tomato. But every time the red crayon would attempt to make a tomato, it comes out blue. And then the red crayon wanted to make a strawberry, but the red crayon could not make a strawberry. And the red crayon was becoming very frustrating, and his family was trying to support the red crayon, but the red crayon was just very, very frustrated. And then the red crayon wanted to make the grapes, the red grapes, but the red crayon just could not make the red grapes. So somebody suggested to the red crayon, you know what? You're really blue, but they just put the wrong label around you. Why don't you try to make some blueberries and see if you can make blueberries? And now the red crayon made blueberries, and they came out to be very beautiful. And the moral of the story is, see, sometimes what is inside may be very different than what is outside. Meaning what? See, you can appear to be a boy, but the inside of you is really a girl. You can be a girl, but the inside you are really a boy. After one of these classes, this is happening in first grade, the teacher said, as she was reading the story, a student, Steve, literally, he left the classroom, came back wearing a dress. And the teacher said, well, Steve was like the red crayon. And now Steve came back, and from now on, Steve is actually going to be Stephanie. And what you see here is these young kids, from a very early stage, are actually indoctrinated, but it was done in a very beautiful way. Very quickly, second example. Who's in a Family? And these are very popular books amongst kids. And basically what they do is they show these kids who's in a family. So you turn the page, a lot of pictures. Here's grandma, grandpa, and mom, and dad, and 3 siblings, and they have a little dog. Flip the page over. It's a family, but there are no grandparents because the grandparents passed away. And then you flip the page over, and it's an African-American dad or mom who's a Caucasian or a Latino or Asian. So now we see different ethnicities. And then you flip the page over, and now we have single moms and single dads. And then you flip the page over, and we see 2 dads. And then you flip the page over, and we see 2 moms. And then the end of the book says, all families are different. It really doesn't matter who is in the family. As long as the family members love each other, this is really what's important. Again, beautifully done. You cannot deny that this is beautifully done. I have 2 dads, but that's not what the book says. The book says, I have 2 eyes, I have 2 ears, I have 2 hands, I have 2 legs, I have 2 dads. Beautiful things come in twos. You look into this and say, but see, subhanAllah, sometimes there are certain things that are said in the Quran, and please remember what we've been saying about the Quran. The Quran is a very brave book that is read by a lot of cowards. It's a very brave book. And somebody pointed out, and this is the book, unfortunately, it's in Arabic, and they titled the book as Badahiyat al-Quran. Things that are so obvious, yet the Quran states. It's like it is so obvious, sometimes it just feels like an insult to the reader. Why would you do that? Why would you state the obvious? Because see, if you start denying the obvious, language loses its validity. So what does the Quran do? In over 7 places, the Quran insists that as far as we're concerned, as far as we Muslims are concerned, gender and sex is binary. There are only 2 sexes. Biology does not equal bigotry. In other words, the Quran repeatedly says, خَلَقَ الزَّوْجَيْنِ الذَّكَرَ وَالْأُنثَى فَجَعَلَ مِنْهُ الزَّوْجَيْنِ الذَّكَرَ وَالْأُنثَى يَهَبُ لِمَنْ يَشَاءُ إِنَاثًا وَيَهَبُ لِمَنْ يَشَاءُ الذُّكُورَ. Allah created the 2 pairs, males and females. Out of it, Allah made the 2 pairs, males and females. Allah blesses whomever He wills with males and females. So this idea of the Quran repeating males, females, the Quran is stating the obvious because there will be a day when that obvious is going to be questioned. It used to be that, you know what, you give birth, the doctor looks at the bottom of the baby and immediately announces, do we have a boy or do we have a girl? Nowadays, there are applications that asks for what was your assigned sex at the time of birth. Did you all hear what I just said? I said, what was your assigned sex at the time of your birth? What do you mean assigned? Well, see, it all stems from this idea that male and female is a social construct, meaning that any one of us can grow to be male, any one of us can grow to be female if there are no social, if we are influenced the right way. This came as a result of an incident that happened in the 1950s. There was a young man, and he was very young, about a year or two old, and he was being circumcised. And during the circumcision, the doctor made a mistake, and his private part was badly damaged. So one of the people present there, he made the idea and he made the suggestion, and he said, you know, this child is too young. We can just perform a surgery on him right now. He was, yes, born a boy, but we can have a surgery done on him, make him into a girl, and raise him as a girl, and he wouldn't know the difference. So the family said, let's do it. They did it. The born boy now is being raised as a girl. They had a sex reassignment surgery for him, and he is growing. But at the age of 13, just things were not going well for that kid. And he was just constantly complaining. He said that there is something wrong. I don't know what it is. And the doctor said, do not tell her what is happening. And this young girl, at the age of 13, she's just demanding something is wrong. And finally, she threatened that she was going to kill herself if she's not being told what is going on. So they finally said, well, you were actually born a boy, but we thought because of what happened to you, we can just raise you as a girl. And by the way, prior to this, that case was celebrated as a beautiful success, because what happened is now we have proven that being male or being female is social construct. The guy was so upset with what just took place. So in his 20s, he decided that he really wanted to be what he was born, and that is to be a boy. And he was, able to have another surgery, and they did what they did to make him into a boy. But the damage was just so deep, and I believe at the age of 38, he committed suicide. Nowadays, I can literally walk into the doctor's office, psychiatrist, and I say, look, I know you see me with 2 hands and 2 legs, but the reality of it is I am an amputee, meaning that my right hand is really not there. But my right hand is here. But I go to the doctor and I say, look, I really have lost my right hand. I'm an amputee. And the doctor would immediately diagnose me with having, physical integrity disorder, and they're going to put me on antipsychotic medication. I can go to the same doctor and say, by the way, I know I look like a man, but I'm really a woman. That doctor will celebrate me and say, we need to now teach you acceptance. You look into this and you say, what in the world is going on? And that is why I say, this is really a loss of innocence. This is not sex education, this is child abuse. This is not sex education, this is indoctrination. And it is very important that from now on, talking to our children about sex and sexuality is no longer an option. It is an obligation. This woman in that article, she argues and she said, I want kids to argue with their parents that homosexual lifestyle is okay. Anybody had that experience with their kids? Where your kids would come and argue with you and say, they're nice people, they're good people, they're in every way. We're not denying this. Nice people, good people, Yes, but the fact that I respect your humanity, the fact that I want to protect your civil liberty, should not be mistaken as an acceptance on my part for your lifestyle. In my beliefs, your lifestyle is haram and is unacceptable. And we should not be afraid of saying this. But we are. But we are. Despite the fact that we read this very courageous book, and like we said, the Quran is a very brave book that is read by a lot of cowards. And at this point, if we do not rise to the standards that the Quran has put for us, I believe that it is going to be very, very difficult. Please remember, please remember, talking to your kids about sex won't make them wanting to have sex. Knowledge was never the problem. Ignorance and unresolved curiosity is the problem. Take this away, inshallah, from this talk. Knowledge was never the problem. Ignorance and unresolved curiosity is the problem. So what do? You can reject all these messages all you want. But we're getting to the point where we cannot escape them. And if you cannot escape them, then what we can do is that we can educate our kids about this. And that's why I love the way that the Quran approached this topic. So depending on the age of your children, you would want to know what would be the proper information that you would give them at this age. You know, there is a specific age, and last time I was here, I recommended that we start talking to our kids about sex at the age of 6, and we teach good touch, bad touch, and then when they're a little older, we start talking about proper behavior. And then to our teenagers, we teach what we call the fiqh of healthy distance. And that is, you know, in Islam, we are not afraid of saying that men are naturally attracted to women and women are naturally attracted to men. And that is why the Quran suggests that we have a healthy distance. And that healthy distance is both physical, moral, and also emotional. I'm going to make one last point here, inshallah. And also, please remember, this is to my young sisters in the audience here, and to the brothers as well. Please keep in mind, at the beginning of any relationship, it doesn't even have to be romantic in nature, at the very beginning of any relationship, encounterment between a man and a woman, the woman holds the power to decide what the moral boundaries of this relationship are going to be like. Do not give away that power that you have. Initially, that power is yours. But the minute you cave in, the minute you compromise that moral boundary, that becomes a big, huge problem. To the parents of these young girls, sisters who are in the audience, please remember, there is an age, this is just subhanAllah, you know, it's one of these things, that we as children, especially for young females, validation is really important. Male validation is important. And that's where we want the fathers to step into the picture here. Because remember, we said that sometimes we'd be in families and would be going through what we call emotional starvation. Starvation is not only physical. People can be emotionally starving. And when people are emotionally starving at home and they do not find that love at home, what do? We look for it somewhere else. And unfortunately, the very first person that validates us, the very first person that appreciates us, the person that expresses any good compliment about us, you know, these become the people that we are drawn into. And for the young boys, I also tell you that subhanAllah, especially in, you know, with what is going on, you know, this talks about keeping your hands to yourself, or what is being taught in our culture nowadays. there is nothing manly about touching a woman against her will. That does not make you a man, that only makes you a bully. And that is unacceptable, it is illegal, and you should not be involved in this behavior. You want to talk to your kids about sexting. That is people passing sexual images over their phone. Nowadays that is very popular. Kids at school, boy would be calling his girlfriend and please, I miss you so much, and she would send compromising pictures of herself in compromising positions, and then they break up and he wants to take vengeance and he ends up sending the pictures to the entire school. Getting these images and passing it on, you're guilty of sexting. And unfortunately, if you are caught and the image happens to be of a minor, then at that point you can potentially be guilty of transmitting pornographic images of minors, and that is a sexual offense. So there is the religious aspect that needs to be addressed. There is definitely the developmental aspect that needs to be addressed. And then there is also the moral aspect that needs to be addressed. And then there is also the legal aspect that needs to be addressed. Please do not be afraid to talk to your kids about sex and sexuality. Use the foundations that the Quran has given us. And I'll just say one more, and I promise I am done. So we said that, for example, sex is binary in the Quran. Then what the Quran teaches is this idea of sex is also complementary. Meaning what? Kids are constantly asking, where did I come from? How do people make babies? And I've heard, mashallah, brilliant answers out there by some of the parents. I was just told that a father told his daughter that he got her from the zoo, mashallah, tabarakallah. Another father said that, they got her at Walmart. And somebody said that she was delivered by Amazon, and so on. And maybe these are funny and these are cute things to say, but the approach of the Quran is that sex is complementary. Well, meaning what? See, I really wanted to have children, but I could not really do it on my own. Your mother really wanted to have children, but she couldn't do it on her own. So complementary. And that is when you speak about, so what the Quran did is, I really wanted to have a child one day, but before I have that child, I wanted to make sure that I find a good mother for him, and that's how myself and your mother got together, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed us with a child. When they grow a little older, maybe we can speak about the mechanism of how that took place, but the idea is initially, the Quran teaches what we call, complementary sex, that sex is binary, that the attraction is natural and so on, but please, whatever you do, please make sure that you take the time to address this issue with your children. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect our children, Ya Rabbil Alameen. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala increase our understanding in the Quran, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Jazakum Allah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.